me and TJ, we can go right ahead into the second segment where we talk about the NBA shutting down G League Ignite. Now, Ignite was a team that is responsible for creating Jalen Green and Jonathan Kuminga and bringing them up into the NBA, getting drafted. And I mean, with the coming of NIL deals, it was sort of like expected that the NBA was going to start cutting down on some G League teams, and Adam Silver even announced it that he was going to start cutting down some of these G League teams and might even start shutting it down completely. And we're seeing a lot of problems coming up with NIL deals and some of the problems are like player being entitled. Some of the problems are also like being this right here and shutting down other programs. But TJ, what do you think of these NIL deals? Do you think they bring more harm than good, or do you think opposite of that?
I mean, I think that where it starts is the reality of the situation. The NCAA was benefiting off of players' names for so long and just getting away with it almost as free labor. Now, they were getting scholarships, so it's not like these athletes weren't getting anything out of the process. I agree with them being able to get paid, but it is absolutely a different world in college athletics now where you have to balance all of these different factors. We're seeing athletes jump from school to school. I don't know if you saw the story. Tommy of the College Football Podcast on our network covered a story. I don't have the name specifically, but this offensive tackle for Alabama football, he was at Alabama. He decided to transfer after Nick Saban announced his retirement, said he was
Yeah.
going to Iowa, and after 2 months is transferring back to Alabama, which just sort of goes to show some aspects of it are a little bit of a joke. And, you know, it's about the good of these individual athletes, but I do think that there's an argument to be made for some of the harm that comes with it, where it doesn't really incentivize players as athletes and just as people, because ultimately that's part of the development of college sports is to become a person that works for something bigger than just yourself, and you are developing as a person, and you're just sort of hopping around, leaving when the situation gets tough, and there are downfalls to it. So while I think it's necessary to allow players to make money, it has gotten a little bit out of control in certain instances.
Yeah, and that's sort of been like what a lot of people were afraid of. Like a lot of people were gonna think like, oh, if we start paying these kids now, their heads are gonna get big, and it's like, oh, I'm worth this much. Oh, I'm actually worth this much. Oh, you're not gonna pay me. I'm going to go to a school that pays me more, and it's like, where do we draw that line? It's like where do we draw the line where it's like okay, these college athletes they deserve the recognition, because I do believe that they do deserve like the name, image, and likeness deals because of what they're bringing um, to the uh, to the organization, to the program, to the school, and it's like where do we draw that line? Because it's very difficult because like I can see both sides. It's like on one end, oh, the players are going to get entitled, but on the other end, it's not like they don't deserve that kind of money. So
Yeah, I think the other interesting thing too is you consider the average student, Grant, they can transfer schools as much as they want without repercussions. There's a lifestyle aspect to all of this that goes beyond just the athletics.
right.
So it's hard to say that you are being restricted from moving around, but maybe there is some sort of future of signing contracts that you are going to be with a school for a couple of years. I know that that sounds maybe a little outlandish, but as it becomes slightly more professional in terms of the making money, you're making an agreement, they are giving you free money to come to school, period. And then you can make the money on top of it as well. I'm not sure how we can incentivize this loyalty a little bit more, but I do think that to make college sports better, there needs to be some sort of a way, and maybe it's coaching as time goes on, where coaches are just going to have to adapt and find a better way to be able to retain their athletes. But I think that's also a huge ask along actually doing the coaching of your team, that you are trying to win as many games as possible. You're trying to recruit for the future as well. I'm not sure what the easy fix is. I don't think there is one.
Right. And I also think like I'm also thinking about like the other perspective on it, like for like the women's side of a lot of sports, because women are getting a lot more money now with name, image and likeness deals than they ever would in the NBA or WNBA, excuse me. And like I see a lot more commercials with Caitlin Clark in them than I see other WNBA players. Like it's really sometimes it's like the names are escaping me now. Like Brittany Griner, like I've seen Caitlin Clark in more ads than I've ever seen Brittany Griner in, and she's played
Yeah.
for Team USA. She's also a WNBA athlete, and it's like with these name, image, and likeness deals, it's bringing that attention to the women's side that they weren't getting so many years back. And it's like I understand that aspect too because it's like the women they should be getting paid as much or like just as much as these men if they can bring in that much attention, especially someone like Caitlin.
Yeah, well, that's why she's so revolutionary to women's sports. Because, I mean, if you look back, and you and I are nowhere near old enough to say we were a part of it, but if you look at the very inception of the NBA, the growth was exponential. It's not like they just started playing basketball and everybody was like, oh, let's buy into this.
Well,
Let's
I
make.
mean, the growth definitely like it peaked with Michael Jordan, which is what I think like Caitlyn is going to be for the WNBA. She is
Yeah,
going to be Michael
exactly.
Jordan.
It takes years to build this thing up, and what you need is talent. And now that there's so much more attention to the women's sports, you have some stars in the WNBA that when they make their transition to the WNBA, I would bet anything that Caitlin Clark's debut is going to be minimum top 3 most viewed WNBA game in
I
history.
think it's going to be
Probably
top
the most,
one.
probably.
I think it's going
And
to be top one. Like,
yeah,
bro, imagine if we saw a Gianna Bryant go up against Caitlin Clark. Oh my
yeah,
gosh, the media
like
would
that would pull in
flip.
views. Hmm.
The media
So
would flip. Like I mean,
absolutely.
before Caitlyn like became Caitlyn and became her. I can't even say him. Can I say him? I don't even know if I could I do I say him or do
Oh
I say her?
yeah, yeah,
But like then there was Gianna, there was Gigi, and everyone thought that like oh my gosh she's going to be a demon in the WNBA because literally is the spawn of Kobe Bryant. But it's
yeah,
like now like thank the Lord that now we're like the talent in like the women's sports in not just basketball but just in general is like getting a lot of recognition now. And I believe that the W not the I keep saying WNBA, the women's NCAA, the tickets they already sold out in the Final Four. I'm pretty sure I saw an article that said that, and they sold out a
would
lot
shock me.
quicker than the men's.
Yeah. Well, there's honestly so much more star power in the women's tournament than there is in the men's tournament right
Honestly,
now.
yeah, that's very true. Like you don't really I mean, everyone thought that it was going to be Bronny James that was going to be like the face of college and like, oh, he's going to average all this, that, and the other. But now when I really think about it, there isn't really like that prominent men's college basketball figure that like is taking over the market, if that makes sense, right? Like
Yeah.
most people
I
talk
totally
about
agree.
like they talk about Bronny just because oh, he's LeBron's offspring. And like from recent memory, the only like real college prospect that I can think of is Lonzo.
I
Like,
mean, Zion was
oh,
also pretty
right.
box
I
office when
completely
he was
forgot
there.
about him too. And even then, like his media attention now is like very little compared to what it was when he was in Duke,
Yeah.
which is
I
crazy to
I
think about.
totally agree. And sort of to your point about the NIL and everything, I think part of that reason is we've also seen these woman stars sort of grow up in these programs where Caitlin Clark has played for years, Angel Reese has played for years, And on the men's side, so much of it is one and dones. And a lot of the time, we have these top players transferring as well. Like, we don't have a sort of staple face in the men's game. The closest to it is probably Zach Edey of Purdue, but there's a couple different factors. He doesn't play the most, entertaining brand of basketball. It's very ref reliant, you could make the argument. A lot of people, because of that,
He
don't even
also keeps they
necessarily.
also keep blowing it in my bracket.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is it's not like they have any of these iconic runs where they've been early exits every year with Edie, but he's the two-time, you know, player of the year that we haven't seen on a big stage yet. Meanwhile, in the WNBA, we have the Caitlin Clarks of the worlds, the LSUs that are making these runs, getting into these heated, high stakes moments, and we just haven't had the star power like that in the men's game, really.
Yeah, like I mean, I only knew about like I'm not even gonna lie. I only knew about him because he messed up my bracket, and he was ridiculously tall. Like
Yeah,
the coverage on him was like meh, and that's sort of how
not
it
very
really
marketable, to be honest.
right.
Just
And
like,
like, but like when you look at Caitlyn, like yes, she is something that could be marketable, especially now since she owns the record for most points ever
yeah,
in college, and it's like obviously like part of it is by having like an inspirational story, things of that nature, but like the other part of it is just like being that girl. I can't say that guy because like
yeah.
she's a female. It's
Well,
you
she's a
gotta
bucket.
yes,
Like,
exactly,
you
and
play
it's
her
like
highlight reels, and everybody can be impressed with it. You can be a guy, you can be a girl. She is a bucket. And
exactly, and it's like that's sort of, and we're supposed to be talking about like the G League shutting down, so we might as well like, what are your opinions on that? Like, did you? I mean, you saw this coming, right?
yeah, I did. And, not that I ever root for failure necessarily. I did want the Ignite to fall through because, sort of tying this into the conversation we've been having, it also has sort of robbed us in a way of some of these star players that have been lottery picks. We talk about Scoot Henderson last year, Jonathan Kuminga, you have Jalen Green. These players could have been very marketable in college basketball, but they go to the Ignite. And as a whole, the Ignite program before NIL existed, I was for it. I thought that it made a lot of sense of the NBA trying to give an opportunity to some of these prospects to make money. But as soon as that happened, you had the NCAA versus Alston court case go through, and name, image, and likeness was approved. So there wasn't necessarily that same lane, as Adam Silver put it at All Star Weekend.
Yeah,
They
there's
were
like there's no
filling.
real need for like to have a G League if you're gonna have like these players get paid in college because like that's sort
Yeah,
of that was like the thing that set apart the G League from college where it's like do you want to hoop to get paid or do you want to hoop to like grow and develop and things of that nature, like that was sort of the main difference. And not saying that you don't grow and develop when you're like part of the G League, but like you're getting paid, so it's like that was
yeah,
sort of that was the really big difference. And like you also have to take into account the education aspect because now not only are the athletes getting paid, they're also getting an education.
yeah. And I do think that, sort of to that as well, you talked about the development. Not that it's everything, right? Because a lot of these players are one and done anyways. But I do feel like there is a semblance of all these players on these college teams. Yes, some of them have NBA aspirations, but they have a greater goal, and that's to be a part of this team, to succeed, to try and win a national championship. Where in the Ignite program, it's a lot of these prospects sort of stepping on each other's toes, just trying to become solely the best prospect possible, and winning wasn't really prioritized, and there wasn't a real sense of chemistry. And that's why I think we see a lot more raw prospects come into the league. And Jalen Green, I've defended him. I think he's a bucket. Jonathan
I
Kuminga
thought
took a while.
opposite. I thought opposite of him until like apparently like he needs his baby mama to be pregnant in order for him to
Yeah,
hoop, which is
yeah,
honestly like I mean all credit to him because like if
yeah,
that's your drive, go for it and like, but it's like do it consistently because like I think
Yeah.
he's a shot chucker sometimes. I don't know what it
Well,
is.
he is. And that's, I think, in part due to the fact that he didn't play in a college system where it was a team game.
Right.
He was just in this situation where for a whole year, he was just trying to become the best possible NBA prospect as opposed to actually learning what it takes to be a part of a team.
And
And
then
that's
being
why
a
I
part of
think,
Houston, it's like the team wasn't really compete. I don't want to say that like yeah, at the
yeah,
time that they grabbed him, they weren't really competing for like a playoff spot. So it's
yeah,
like it's
totally.
definitely a little bit difficult for him to like mesh with that like oh there is no I in team type of quote. And
Yeah, they didn't have expectations either, like you said.
but at the same time, however, you really like maybe that's just him because look at Jonathan Kuminga. He is right now the second best option on the Golden State Warriors, and he's playing very, very well. But then again, I mean, your life
It took him
ultimately
some
becomes
time, though.
easier when you're playing with Steph.
Yeah, this is very true. But also keep in mind, right before he erupted into the player that he was frustrated with Steve Kerr about not getting enough minutes. And that's again because he's a talent. He should have been getting the minutes.
Yeah, that
And
was I
he
was about to say. I don't really think I like that's just a confidence thing. Like if you
yeah, that too.
if you really think that like you deserve these minutes, you're going to voice that to your coach. And like obviously like the coach is if I was a coach, I would definitely take that into consideration and put him in and see like okay, let's see what he's got because it's like
Yeah.
if you are confident with your game, that is the key part to being a basketball star, having that confidence. And it's like that's sort of like that's a big reason why some of these players are in the slumps that like they have these shooting slumps because it's like that pressure is all over the place and you need that confidence to sort of cancel all that pressure out because if you think and if you know that you are that guy, you are going to perform like you are that guy.
Mm-hmm.
And
Totally
like
agree.
that's something that I really liked about Jonathan Kuminga because he knew his game. He knew exactly what Steve Kerr was missing out and he walked the walk and he talked the talk.
But it also took 2 years for him to become the player he is today.
That is
And
true.
the Warriors, sort of a totally different situation than the Rockets,
Right.
where they were all in on trying to win a championship. The Rockets were trying to build a culture. The Warriors already had sort of the most prominent culture in the NBA, and it was trying to slide in this young prospect into it. Now he's flourishing.
Yeah, it's very interesting how they're gonna pair up Jalen Green with Sengun when Sengun gets back in the rotations because you know he is injured and that's unfortunate for Houston. But then again, they weren't really actually. I lied. They do have a chance to make the play-in spot now because of Golden State and their recent struggles. So we'll see how that plays out in like the rest of the season. But with that, we are out of time for this second segment. So I will be continuing the third and the fourth segment alone. So really appreciate you, TJ, for being on the show. Thank you so much. And
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me on.
any last words before Zoom kicks you out?
Nothing really. Go Celtics.
Boo!
And you can catch me on the GSMC Sports Podcast at 2:00.
All right, so be sure to tune into that, everyone. So, see you, TJ. Have a good one.
Have a good one.
All right, so what a nice guy. We love to see it. So I'm just gonna go ahead and end this meeting. So because like you guys can't see it, but right now he's still in the Zoom meeting. So, see you, TJ. There we go. And yeah, let me know in the comments what you guys think of TJ. He's a great guy. Other than the fact that he's a Celtics fan and a Patriots fan, just ugh. I don't even want to know if he's a Red Sox fan, because then everything's just ew. But I digress. Now, in the third segment, we are going to pivot over to NBA basketball and do a quick recap of all the NBA games that happened last night. I'm sure not many people really watched those NBA games because, you know, college was going on and college was taking everyone by storm. That was the big talk that was going in. So I'll just give a quick recap of what happened, any type of important stories. I'll keep you guys updated. So I will be right back after this short break.